Joining me now from New York City, founder of Geltrude and Company, Dan Geltrude. Thank you so much for joining me, Dan. Dan, we know that the government keeps talking and Congress keeps talking about spending more money. We just recently saw the $2 trillion COVID-19 relief, which was more of a boondoggle, less about relief for the American people, more about the pet projects of the Democrats. But that being said, I mean, the greatest relief for our economy would be to continue to stop the lockdowns. And we're seeing great benefits of that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing, Stephanie. Look, the vaccines are helping tremendously, and we're moving towards herd immunity. And we're going to get there sooner rather than later. At the same time, what we're seeing now is businesses are starting to reopen. This is exactly the direction that we have to take. All this stimulus spending, and as you alluded to, these pet projects are not doing anything, but they're going to hurt us in the long run with how much we're spending. So if you look back at the Trump economy, and whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it's really hard to argue that things weren't running pretty well in the economy at that time. How did we get there? Lower taxes and deregulation. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, the Biden administration seems like they're going to go on a path of tax and spend, and I think that's absolutely the wrong direction to be headed in.
Yeah, speaking of spend, the $3 trillion infrastructure plan that's being thrown around right now, that is a lot of money. And so they say, oh, well, it could create jobs and stimulate the local economies and whatnot. But as you pointed out, there's always consequences. I mean, it's not like this is just free money. At the end of the day, Americans are paying for it. And also, like, talk about the debt.
Well, the debt number is now over 28 trillion. We're going to be going well over 30 trillion in a very short period of time. Now, the excuse and why people are saying it's okay is because interest rates are low, so the payments are low. That's not going to last forever. At some point in time, the interest rates will start to rise, and the nation's cash flow will suffer, meaning it is going to cost more and more to be able to service that debt. Where do we get money from? More taxes. And more taxes are the least helpful when it comes to growing a nation's economy.
Yeah, it seems like mostly the Democrats who love to tax. They never read a tax they didn't like. Again, they're talking about raising taxes, and the White House is now clarifying which wealthy individuals they would like to see pay more. And now they're talking about a corporate tax rate of 28% from 21%. And you talk to corporations, any business owners, people who got the tax cuts. What do they do with the money? It's pretty simple. They invested in their businesses. They gave raises. They hired people. So it's not like the wealthy are just necessarily pocketing this money. It goes down to other people.
Well, the mantra that we're hearing, Stephanie, is tax the rich, tax the corporations, and it's all in the name of tax fairness. Now, let's take a look at tax fairness from an individual standpoint. To begin with, nearly half the people in this country, nearly half, pay zero federal income tax. So we have half the people pay no tax. And then if you look at the 1%, the upper 1%, they cover 40% of the income taxes. So I'm a little confused as to why people aren't paying their fair share. It's completely not true. And until we get a reality check that even the rich can run out of money, meaning we tax the 1% at 100%. We still can't keep up with all this spending. This country has a spending problem, not a revenue problem.
Absolutely. And we did hear from the White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on this. Roll tape.
I know Senator Warren has put forward a wealth tax, and the president shares her view that middle-class families are paying more than their fair share, and those at the top are not doing their part. So certainly he has that shared objective. He laid out during the campaign his own plans for fixing this, which are different from Senator Warren's. But certainly, as we get to the point about discussing taxes and tax reform or reforms of the tax system, that they share an objective.
So again, we hear people that are like, oh, we got to tax the rich. They got to pay their fair share. They already do pay their fair share, number one. And number two, like at some point, corporations and businesses are going to go elsewhere. And we've learned this from just our country. We've learned from other countries where they have really high taxes. People will go elsewhere to do business. So then we'll get zero taxes.
Well, they absolutely will. Look, right now we're at 21% on corporate taxes. Joe Biden has talked about going up to 28%. Previously, before the Trump tax cuts, we were at 35. What's interesting here is that Janet Yellen, Secretary of the Treasury, has already alluded to 28% may not be enough. It may have to go even higher than that. Well, what's going to happen? Corporations are going to conveniently move outside the United States where they can get a better tax rate. The average corporate tax rate worldwide is less than 25%. So once you start to go higher than that, it becomes fair game for migrations of corporations to other places around the world. And you can't blame them. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders.
Absolutely. I want to get your thoughts on this really quickly. So there's a program in Oakland, California, where they're giving $500 monthly checks to low-income families of color. By the way, if you're white and low income, you don't get this $500. I think that's kind of racist, but that's another topic for another day. But number two, is this a good thing, like to give people $500? They're not really held accountable. They can spend the money wherever they want.
Well, for starters, as you said, the whole race issue here, that's a very long conversation. There are people of all races that need help, Stephanie. No question about it. There's poor people, and in our country as rich as ours, we want to help those people. However, paying people to stay home in terms of just free money, that is not the way to attack this problem. This whole thing of a guaranteed income, which kind of became mainstream through Andrew Yang when he was running for president with the freedom dividend of $1,000 per month, just because, that doesn't work. What works is we need to educate people, train people, and then provide them with equal opportunities for them to lift themselves up. That is the path to prosperity. The path to prosperity is not collecting a check from the government to stay home with no training and no way to bring yourself out of your situation.
Well said, Dan. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Coming up next, one